Was that there was a friend of ours back 30 years ago that did a study out in San Diego in the United States that looked at people who were orthodox on our program with major diseases and found out in the first 7 days you eliminate 60% of the waste from your body. So that's why a lot of you, when you start this, if you're a little lighthearted, you say, oh, it's not working. Why? Because you feel like you were hit by a truck. It is working. All of the waste is pouring out of your veins, your organs, your gallbladder, your head, and bottom line is you're like a sieve of waste. You've got to go through that initial stage. Then you have 6 years and 51 weeks, since it takes 7 years for the body to totally regenerate, to now clean the rest off. So you've got to go through a little pain and suffering to go through the phases. But we see major shifts. The average drop in cholesterol, just to give you one example, in the 3-week period at the Institute is 50 points. That's average. So every week we see 100, 125, some you see 30, but 50 is the average.
And equally for greens attacking tumours.
The minute you put these chemistries into your body, they're going to do their job. Now, I'm not suggesting that after you drink one green juice, your tumors are going to go. Again, I'll repeat what I said about 1 hour and 2 minutes ago. That literally it takes 2 years to reverse major diseases. In 2 years, if you put your head to it, do everything else we suggest. It's head first, remember that. You can reverse major diseases.
Dr. Clements, my son has esophageal cancer and he's lost weight very, very quickly. His oncologist has advised him to eat high-fat, high-calorie foods, get as much into it as possible. What would you say to that?
I'm sorry it's your son, but that's going to precipitate death. What you're going to do is reduce oxygen loads. The more oxygen that's gone, the higher incidence of cancer development, splitting of the cancer cell. More stem cells are seduced into becoming cancer that way. Esophageal cancer, there's been 4 major studies that show that hyperthermia kills it in the early stage. Once they start to cut into it, again, the tentacles come out, it starts to spread through the body, that's when it's a problem. So I would get this son into an infrared sauna daily for a minimum of 30 to 45 minutes. Number 2, there's a pad, an infrared pad you stick into the wall. When he's sitting and reading and doing whatever he does, he sticks it over his neck and he sits and reads for an extra hour. Heat that up, heat that up. And if he doesn't get radically and immediately on a diet like this, and then of course we individualize it, what supplements do we target with it? You need to give, how old is this lad?
He's 43.
Honest to God. I mean, this is what I see every day. It's heartbreaking. I'm in my office with parents crying with 15-year-olds. Why do they have stage 4 cancer? You know, what do you say to these parents? Because it's this sickness we call the culture today. But this can be reversed. You know, the bottom line is, seemingly he's in the hands of somebody who's totally inept when it comes to what they should be doing.
Can I speak to you later on about this?
Absolutely.
I read that having a biopsy causes cancer to spread. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, again, before we can detect cancer with the most sophisticated testing today, which is a PET scan, you have to have 5 billion cells. So get what I'm saying. It's microscopic. There has to be 5 billion cells before a PET scan can pick it up. Now, can you imagine that we take a needle and we stick it into something that has 100, 200, 300, 500 billion cells? Now, in relative terms, if you have 100 trillion cells, billions aren't a lot, but the fact is, you poke into it, it's like me taking a seed bag and ripping a hole in the side of it, what's going to happen to the seeds. So it doesn't take a genius to understand basic math on this stuff.
Anybody else, please keep your hands up because it's difficult for me to see it.
Hi, Dr. Clements. I just wanted to ask you about genetic cancer. You mentioned that there's an ongoing study that, if I heard you correctly, says that having genetic cancer does not mean you'll get cancer. Having genetic cells or a gene will not give you cancer.
Correct.
Well, I've been told that an 80% risk.
Sure.
Of
You have a
breast
broad
cancer.
gene. Yeah. It's a bonus. Okay. Let's explain it to you. How this happened is about 3 years ago, a colleague of mine that I have a lot of love for, he's a mainstream doctor, very concerned, and knows as much as I do about this, if not more. So he's a real doctor. He knows everything he possibly can in any field. He was doing things in the 60s that people are now just starting. He called me and said, have you had enough? I said, yes. He said, you know, I'm going to introduce you to the man that created the genetic code. He's a young guy. He's maybe 70 now. I got on. I said, ask him the question you want to ask him. I said, do genes have anything at all to do with cancers? He said, absolutely not. Less than 5% are inherited. Now, this is the geneticists that create genetics. The man that created genetics. Look, he flipped it back over. I will once again repeat what I said to you about 49 minutes ago. That we have been hijacked, genetics has been hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry in guerrilla marketing and fear marketing to convince people like you better do something rapidly, you better do it quick, because everyone in your family had it. What we call this is a micro snapshot. And it's an evolutionary micro snapshot. I didn't have the time tonight to show it. I showed it yesterday in the 3-day conference in Germany, where we actually have the films of what happens now. We show you how, for instance, high sugar and high protein create free radicals, and those free radicals get down and disturb, now at this point, your lifestyle, your environment, the genes. Not you inherited genetics. And this Brock gene is one of the typical tips of the iceberg in this stuff. They're talking out of the butt, to tell you the truth.
I just want to ask if you've done any with migraine treatments.
Oh, sure. Migraine comes usually from the intestinal tract. Second biggest cause, but much, much smaller, is head injuries. You may have had one you didn't know about. It's almost always, like 70% of the time, the large intestine. So once you get into the large intestine, see what's there, see where the bacteria is, in almost every case you can fix it. If it's a head injury, you have a particular type of manipulation like cranial reconstruction, NUCA. These are technologies that really work for that. You've got to determine which is yours. You may have allergies. You may have environmental problems, fungus. I mean, Ireland's like Florida. You know, there's a lot of fungus, a lot of mold here. And bottom line, it could be something simple like it could be the clothing you wear. You could be allergic to a lot of things. In the United States now, in the inner city ghettos, where the poorest of poor kids are, 100% of the classes now have 100% of the students have asthma. Why? And guess what? With asthma, I had asthma, had headaches all the time. I haven't had a headache until I got rid of asthma, since I got rid of asthma.
Dr. Clement, in the past, you've spoken about the importance of vitamin B12.
Yes.
And you may have touched it with broccoli this evening. Can you give a reminder of why? I think you even have gone on to say that if one was to take one naturally occurring supplement, it needs to be vitamin B12.
Absolutely.
Just the importance of it.
Yeah. This became apparent to us a number of years ago, 15 years ago or more, when I started to do research on B12 deficiencies. I found out that meat eaters have a higher incidence of B12 deficiencies than vegans do, vegetarians do. And we've concluded why, that there has been a de-evolutionary process of the large intestine. B12 is literally a soil-based bacteria. It's not a supplement. And because we stopped eating from the earth, we started to sterilize things, and we pesticides, fungicide, herbicide, and cook it. That all kills the bacteria. And then there's been this de-evolution that part of the large intestine, the bottom of it, is gone. It's not there. It was there hundreds and hundreds of years. It doesn't exist anymore. And that front part was like an open boot, that after the ileocecal valve released digested food, it would come down into that front and culture itself into B12. Without that being there, we need daily consistent use of B12. The problem is, as you've heard me say, you need the type we have here, a bacterial form. Most of the methyls are made out of alcohols. They're chemically derived. And the last study I did, on a major study on B12, I took 38 people that were literally taking at least 2 shots, most 1 week, every week taking a shot of B12. 36 did not have B12. And these people were taking shocking, like 20,000 mgs of this stuff once a week or at least twice a month. And why? Because it's a bacteria that needs to get into the body. The one supplement that every man, woman, and child should take, unless you want to go bad, dementia, unless you want to be misdiagnosed with Parkinson's disease, is B12. Over 70% of the population lacks B12. Not because I say so, because we've shown it. I mean, it stunned me. It stunned me when I found this.
Hi, how are you? Just a comment with regard to dairies. Once, maybe it's a bad question, but it's genuine. Once I read that if you, for example, were stranded in a desert island, the only food that could keep you alive for longer would be milk. And that to make sense because, for example, if you take a child, a 2-year-old, if we give him milk for 1 year, he would survive, but not with any other food, I think. So, what's your comment on that? Thanks.
Number one, most desert islands don't have animals that want you to grab their breast and drink milk out of it. Number two, if you go to the military, and if you're in the most elite military forces, everywhere in the world they teach them that grass is what you eat when you're starving. How do you think the milk gets nutrition in it, love? We're not that smart, remember. Yes.
Hi, I have very reactive IBS and extremely low energy levels, and I'm definitely not the only person that I know that suffers from this. I don't know if there's any foods in particular that would, I suppose, in terms of avoiding, but also trying to incorporate that would help in this.
What she's talking about is a catch-phrase term called irritable bowel syndrome. That's a number of different disorders where she's not digesting food and not holding food. And then there's not a specific thing I can tell you other than to personalize it, but the use of high mineralization, green clay use in there to bond things, to get what we call the prebiotics, then the use of anal implantation of probiotics, as well as oral consumption of probiotics, as well as particular type of foods. You don't want lots of active foods in there. You want them to be more metabolism slower in foods. But again, you've got to individualize it for this. Here we are in the back there. I'm going to put it out the door, sir.
Could I just ask you, is there much difference between barley grass and wheatgrass?
No, if you grew barley grass at home and it was fresh, not the powdered. The powdered wheatgrass and powdered barley grass, you might as well throw away. It's 1% effective. But the juice is where it is. What we have is the fiber left when you get the powder. But if you're saying to me, if I grow barley grass and I grow wheatgrass, barley has 47 nutrients in it, wheat has 96 nutrients in it, but other than that, they're identical. All grasses have chlorophyll in it. I don't know where we are here.
Hi, just wondering if you've had any experience of stage 3 ovarian cancer, which we've heard 4 times?
Several thousand people over the years, and we've seen many people reverse stage 4 and stage 3 ovarian cancer. It's an interesting one because when you get into an area like the prostate, the breast, or the ovaries, where you have a lot of hormonal activity, it has a potential to go away quick and spread quick. So, as quick as it can grow, it can go.
Hi, I'd just like to ask your opinion on raw, unpasteurized milk. And
If you want cancer, if you want heart disease, if you want strokes, if you want diabetes, I think it's a great food for you. If you don't want those diseases, you avoid milk in all cases at all times, no matter how organic or how raw it is.
And a few tips on how to quickly gain weight.
How you gain weight is called weightlifting. The only weight you want in your body is muscle weight. If you put food into your body to gain weight, every ounce that shouldn't be there is going to contribute to disease and aging. So you've got to lift weight. It's not good enough just to eat fattening food because you're thin. You're a fast metabolizer, you're young still. I hope you're still asking me the question when you're 50. Yes. Won't be like this.
We just ask you, organic foods bought in supermarkets, a lot of them are imported from Spain and different countries. How much enzymes do you think are lost in transportation by the time you bring that home?
He's asking about organic food that you don't grow in your yard, but maybe shipped a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago from Spain. They're what we call condiments, even at Hippocrates. We ship them in. We have a big garden now of 3 acres, organic garden, but still, that's a fraction of what we use in juice. So we ship it in from California. So we put the vegetables out. Why? Because people are used to them, they're familiar, different flavors, different tastes. But frankly, they have little to no nutrition. Whereas a sprout that costs pennies and is 10, 20, 30 times more nutritious than the best vegetables that you grow 12 months a year in the middle of snowstorms in Dublin, basically is what you should be eating. It's bursting with energy when you're biting into it. That's the way to get around it. And at one point, by the way, just by default, that's all we could buy. when I first got into this, the only thing you get organic in the United States, maybe, not always, is carrots and apples. Maybe cabbage occasionally. So all we ate were sprouts. And by the way, you'd be better off.
Sorry, Brian, I was just curious about plastics.
Plastic is shocking today. There is no drinking water that doesn't have plastic. They've looked at the most pristine lakes in the world, which is in North Pole, South Pole. They're all loaded with plastics. In the middle of the Pacific, you may want to get online, you could see this. There's now a documentary on the largest land dump in the world that's floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And they go out with scuba divers and show you what's happening. They degrade, the plastic comes out and looks exactly identical to plankton, the fish eat it. But then on top of it, it vaporizes in the heat, it goes up into the cloud, and that's how the plastic goes here to Ireland and everywhere in the world. Pardon? Okay. So she's asking about alkaline water. Okay. Unfortunately, other than one system out of Britain called the at-most system, which we use at Hippocrates, no alkalizer should I suggest you buy because they don't have filters on them. So what you're doing is taking plastic and pharmaceutical drugs and fluoride and chlorine, none of them, even the 4,000 euro ones, have good filters on them. They're junk filters. So you're organizing deadly chemicals and putting it in. Now, when are alkalizers good? When you're sick. I drink alkalized water 4 or 5 times a week, but I don't think it's good for a healthy person to every day take alkalized water. It would be like me saying, oh, the lights are working, let's give more electric to the wire. But if I'm sick, if I have cancer, multiple sclerosis, and other disease, I want to supercharge myself and bring it back. That's when it's great.
I have a question about flying. You fly a lot. I guess you take some sort of vitamins or supplements.
I do. We have something called a travel kit. It has oxygen drops, which every hour I take 10 drops and put it in water. It has OSHA, that is an herb that kills viruses and kills bacteria. I take sovereign silver, that also kills infection in the body. And I don't wear jewelry of any type except this one. And this one is a magnetic field interrupter. So when you're on a plane, as an example, a flight from Dublin, which I'll be on tomorrow to the United States, I'll get 23 x-rays. Next, 2 weeks from now, when I go from Florida to California, I'm going to get about the same. So you've got to watch. If I go from New York to Moscow, I get 28 x-rays. And this is not an opinion, these are facts, by the way. So those people who are the sickest that come to me out of professions are pilots, number 1, flight attendants, number 2, radiologists, number 3, hairdressers, number 4. Why? Because they're in cosmic radiation all the time. So this doesn't eliminate it, but rather than hitting my electric body and diminishing my immunity, it hits this like a lightning rod. It gets a light. Do you have them here? BioShields?
No, I think
You can get them here.
Hello, you spoke about a lot of different cancers. Does your way of treating and get rid of malignant melanomas as well?
Again, we are known worldwide for numbers of people coming and reversing stage 4 melanomas. I'll once again repeat what I said. We are in the middle of a study with the University of California. We intentionally selected stage 4 melanomas because we've had so many people reversing. 2 days ago, I gave a big presentation, showed a young man that had it, reversed it. We followed him all along and did biofrequency testing where you actually see what he looked like when he was dying 8 years ago and what he looks like now. Amazing stuff.
And you advise people not to go in sunshine?
No, that's not what I said. No. Sunshine is not what causes the melanoma. What causes the melanoma is what's inside of the body. So you have heavy animal fat, deadly chemicals, and heavy metals, and then you go into the sun, and the immune system pushes it out, the waste comes out on the skin, the frying happens on the skin, you end up with melanoma. And once you burn yourself, especially the Irish, we burn ourselves as kids, you're in trouble. Because the susceptibility and vulnerability for melanoma to come later when you burn is dramatically increased. But again, I have seen people reverse this time and time again. Calcium is a joke. that after studying thousands and thousands of women with the most sophisticated nutritional tests available, only 1 out of 125 women lack calcium. That's a sham. Women do lack silica, women do lack biotin, women do lack magnesium, but women really lack weightlifting. So if you took nothing, you would be weightlifting first, and then the other 3 I spoke about. Green leafy vegetables are where they discovered 19 blank at the University of blank by Evans and Bishop. 1933, University of California, Evans and Bishop, calcium was discovered in what? Green leafy vegetables. You don't get calcium on this program, you're never going to get it. Yes?
Hi. You earlier spoke about cruciferous vegetables and the importance of the vegetables, and you're recommending the supplements which are mushrooms. I was advised not to take any of those, not to have any cruciferous vegetables because I have an underactive thyroid, and the mushroom vitamins because I have candida in my system.
Okay, well, whoever advised you on the second one and the first one didn't have the whole story. Cruciferous vegetables can affect a woman who has certain kinds of thyroid disorders in 20% of the cases. Otherwise, you can eat cabbage, broccoli, etc. When you sprout them, which, by the way, I would suggest you do, because it's dynamically better, dramatically better, 48 times better, you have no bad effect. So you sprout the broccoli, you sprout the cabbage. And by the way, to save you a lot of money, once they realized that the most anti-cancer agent they ever found was broccoli sprouts, they jacked up the price of broccoli sprouts to like $14 a pound. This is how they get it. Cabbage is not that much different, by the way. And so that's it. Number 2, people who speak against mushrooms obviously haven't looked at one bit of studies that came out of Asia over the last 60 years. I've never seen more relevant and incredibly important work done on immune boosting than when it comes to certain kinds of mushrooms. And so I would agree with champions, what you and I grew up eating, but not some of the maitake, shiitake, wild mushrooms, etc. Okay, a few more questions.
Hi, Brian. I have problems with my lymphatic system about 40 lymph nodes, and I did a lot of reading on news and all that stuff over the last few years. I have a few of your books, but they don't seem to be going down. There's a lot of the neck, the grinds, underarms, stuff like that. Just wondering.
Now, when you say you're doing exercise, now do you drink green juice and do you eat 100% plant-based diet?
Not 100%, no.
Either a little pregnant. It's like somebody says to me, I haven't walked all the way and I haven't arrived there yet. So you've got to walk all the way. I mean, you've got to take this serious. You're a young lad. When you have lymph glands that are pumped up, that's not a good sign. Because there's 2 things that the lymph system's for. It's a major filter system. So what that indicates without knowing more is that your lymph system's not clean the way it should. But more important than that, this is a local police station. So that's why the activity of removing lymph glands doesn't make a lot of sense. You're like going where the criminals are and saying, let's get rid of the police. And you want those police stations to be filled with great cops. And so the rebounding is important, but I'm suggesting in a case like yours, you're doing 30 to 45 minutes daily. Number 2, you should be taking copious amounts of fluid. You know, what do you weigh, about 130? What?
More than
Right.
30.
How much do you weigh?
13 stone.
Oh, you're taller than I thought. Then you're short there, sitting down. Thought you were a leprechaun for a minute. But, okay. So in your case, then you need about 85 to 90 pure fluids, ounces a day. So that's water, juices, combinations of those type of things. And you also should be thinking about finding electromagnetic therapies to get that pulsation out and cleaning them up. A unit that we use that's brilliant for that is called an H-wave unit. And there are some in Ireland, some of the people have. Yes?
We actually have the H-wave on a program in Cork, so we can sort that for you.
Amazing stuff. That just gets the lymph glands dancing.
The person already has osteoporosis and has damaged vertebrae. How would they equate to hurting themselves?
Well, again, you have to do the same thing, but when I say exercise with weights, you go to a physical therapist when you have an injured vertebrae. You don't walk into a gym and ask a trainer who took a weekend's program with you. You need somebody who knows anatomy. It's not even me, I couldn't teach you how to do it. You need somebody who really understands the skeletal structure and what to do in your case. Number two, the use of cold laser on your vertebrae has been remarkable. When we use the cold, non-invasive cold laser, it's phenomenal what we see with it, and almost refusing sometimes.
And second question, possibly store juices with safety label?
No.
No, not at all.
When you make a juice, the important parts of it, the hormones, oxygen, phytochemicals, and enzymes are gone in 15 minutes. That's the things that reverse the disorders. What's left, or if you store them and there's no oxygen, a little bit of vitamins, a lot of minerals, and some protein. Yes?
I just wanted to ask you about partial alopecia.
Yes.
Just wondering, so,
Well, the alopecia, how bad is his hair?
quite patchy.
Okay. How old is he?
Comes and goes, he's 29.
All right. So it's hormonal, and so at 29, his hormones have settled down since he's 25. So what we'd have to do is the hormone power would be amazingly good. But we see with a lot of kids, it's this high amount of cholesterol messing with their follicles in their hair that's causing the alopecia. It actually, the high fat saturation smothers the cell, and the alopecia comes from that.
Dr. Clement, I asked you earlier on just briefly about multiple sclerosis. I know it's not the theme of the day, but in Ireland there's a lot of cases, newly diagnosed people, and if you say out loud to everybody that a lot of people have friends and relatives, what some of the therapies you mentioned to me earlier, and maybe 2 or 3 things about the diet. I know everything what you've said. I've already studied a lot about it.
If people have traditional multiple sclerosis, it is a virus that attacks the brain. When you have a virus in the brain, you've got to realize the brain only has one immune system cell. It's the most primitive immune system cell that's ever been in the body. It's a reptilian cell, but it's the toughest immune system cells. Now, you've got to get into the brain to activate that. To do it, the use of electromagnetic stimulation is phenomenal. We put every one of these people with MS in hyperbaric chambers. That should be mandatory in medicine. That's how important that is. We also make sure that we target certain essential fats and proteins to the brain. And of course, they've got to live like saints, because their diet has to be so pure that through the blood-brain barrier, little ventricles that go up there, everything's flowing in such an easy way that the nutrients can go up and stop the progression of the disease. There's about 15%, we now believe, worldwide of multiple sclerosis that is not multiple sclerosis. It's heavy metals, everything from mercury mostly to lead that's attacking the brain. But let me tell you, the best doctors I know that I trust, you can't tell the difference. It looks like gray matter. I mean, people who know what I know, they can't tell the difference.
Hi, Dr. Clements. I just wanted to ask you, you were talking earlier about fungus, and I was just wondering about what you thought about kombucha.
I'm not a fan of kombucha. Kombucha is water with sugar in it. What we know is, let me give you the word for this, I didn't yet tonight. What causes all physical diseases? Emotions cause the disease, but what causes all physical disease is called glycation. Glycation, this is well established now in the hierarchy of medicine, is when proteins and sugars in high amounts come together. And so you want to create glycation, great. In the better ethical health stores in America, they no longer sell kombucha because it has a higher alcohol content than wine does in most cases. That's why people, I see them walking out with the cases.
We're going to take 2 more questions now, and
then we're going to go to sleep.
Doctor, just 2 things. What's the best way of lowering cholesterol?
Stop eating cholesterol. Where do you get cholesterol from? Dairy food and meat. Fish, chicken, red meat, etc. Number 2, your body makes cholesterol. Now cholesterol, a lot that you were taught about cholesterol is wrong. Some people naturally have high cholesterol because their brain needs it, their metabolism needs it. You're not always going to have a heart attack or stroke. I would say 80% of people that have high cholesterol will give them a heart attack and stroke. And you don't know that until you see over a long period of time cholesterol readings. When you look at homeocysteine, IgA, IGF, you combine all of that together.
And the second one, quickly, I developed epilepsy about 1.5 years ago.
Interesting.
I'm on medication. Will I have to stay on medication for life?
There's been 130 causes of epilepsy we know of so far in the books. In the majority of cases, it's an injury or an allergy. Okay? There's a percentage that's emotional. You may have had an emotional trauma. And not now, it could have happened, and now it's presenting itself as you get older and get anxious and things. That could be another reason. So it depends on what it is. Head injury, I can't say definitively, yes, you can get off medicine. Because I don't know that. I've seen head injuries people cannot get off medicine. Where I've seen, I would probably say in 70% of the cases that I've worked with hundreds and thousands of cases over the year, you have the potential to come off. But you don't just rip it off.
Just want to ask you, Dr. Clements, you don't have a lot of, say, raspberries and blackberries and you have them stored in deep freeze. Do they lose a lot of their vitamin C? Because I suppose I know what should be sold in the seeds and the nuts, but I said, well, I don't want to waste this. My mother's doing all the gardening and everything. Well, there's probably not that much left, you know. I mean, it doesn't come from, it is local, but at the same time, it's going to be lost.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, if you're in Ireland and now it's September, October, and you're picking raspberries and blueberries and you're not sick, and nobody said you can't eat fruit for this period of time, freezing them, although you're going to kill a lot of it, it's still a lot better than buying it out of a shop. You're getting Brazil berries here that it screws the environment, your health, and they don't have much more. So, I think we need to compromise in something. Now, if you have cancer, you don't touch fruit. If you have obviously diabetes, So, first, it was nice to be here in Dublin with you. Give you a big hand.